Let's not get lost in all the modern nomenclature of basketball. 7-footers really, really matter. It's next on Locked On Jazz. Bum 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 bum.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked On Jazz. It's your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available each and every day right here on this feed, on your podcast, on your YouTube, wherever it might be. Subscribe and follow. Thank you very much for tuning in. On today's show, Doc Rivers told a fib last night, and we're going to talk about it. Trade landscape update, how things are looking and what might take place. Will Hardy had a clear message of what he wants for Keyonte George. Kind of remarkable that a head coach lays it out that closely. And 7-footers really matter is the story from last night's ballgame with the Jazz. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel, Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can get $5 if you win. You'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app and head to FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you to the everydayers that are out there with us each and every day on this program. We are here 5 days a week. Thanks so much for tuning in. So the Utah Jazz fell to the Milwaukee Bucks last night, and the Jazz launched 50-some-odd threes or something of the sort, and the Milwaukee Bucks beat the Jazz. And Walker Kessler didn't play, and Brook Lopez did play. And to some extent, and they have Giannis Antetokounmpo. I could almost argue that that's the game. So last night, the Milwaukee Bucks shot 17 of 17 at the rim. I've never seen it. Just to put this in a little bit of perspective, the league average in the restricted area shooting, if you use cleaning the glass, which is probably the easiest way to find this, though their numbers are a little different, they just call it rim, and it's probably pretty close, is 66%. If you use the NBA's numbers where you specifically get to the NBA kind of shooting in restricted area, it's about the same. 66%. And last night, the Milwaukee Bucks crazily went 17 of 17 at the rim because there was no Walker Kessler. The best team in the league in the NBA is the Lakers, shoot 71% at the rim. The average team in the league is actually kind of the Jazz, and we shoot 66%. And then in the floater zone, which is really supposed to be an area where people shoot inefficient shots, that's the paint non-restricted area, the Milwaukee Bucks shot 15 of 22 for 66%. Not quite, but pretty close. The league average on that shot of shooting a floater is 44%. The best team in the league at the paint non-restricted area is the Cleveland Cavaliers at 51%, and the average team in the league is 43%. This is because the Jazz played Drew Eubanks and Kyle Filipowski as their centers last night. And if you let NBA players get around the basket without any resistance, both guys are 6'9", I'm not talking about their effort or their desire. They just didn't grow overnight. On the flip side, the Utah Jazz got to the rim 19 times last night, which is not a bad number. And they were forced into 22, the same 22 flip shots, floaters, inefficient shots, and they did what the league averages. They went 10 of 22. They actually shot a little bit above league average. And the Milwaukee Bucks forced the Jazz into 40 above the break three-point shots. 40. Why? Because they have Brook Lopez and Giannis Antetokounmpo sitting in the basket. What's interesting about this is that the league the kind of the talk around the league that we all know is the defense dictates the rim, the offense dictates threes. So if you want to take away the rim as a defense and you have the personnel, you can do it. And that's what the Bucks have done. Since Mike Budenholzer had Brook Lopez, he sat him in the middle, and Doc Rivers pregame said to us, yeah, our defense has gotten way better since we saw you earlier this year. Remember, we saw them and they were 27th in the league defensively when we played them the first time. They were 1-7. They were an unmitigated disaster. And talking to Doc Rivers before the game about what is different, he said, well, we had to kind of try to implement a new defense, in which basically what they're doing is they're making sure that they never don't have Giannis or Brook Lopez or one of their other bigs at the rim. And since they have kind of figured out how to do this, they're one of the best teams in the league at denying you getting shots at the rim. This is what they do now. Since November 12th, the Milwaukee Bucks are one of the best, have tightened up the game defensively. They've become a much better defensive team. And they hold Brook and Giannis at the rim, and you have a hard time. And the only way you can really beat them is you get forced into taking 53s. Now, on the whole conversation about too many threes in the league, this is also part of the issue, is the defense dictates the rim. And because the defense dictates the rim, then if you can't get to the rim, you drive Brook Lopez there, you drive Giannis there, you kick out, you go to the next guy, you're shooting threes. So for the Jazz, what does this matter? Well, Walker Kessler is our 7-footer. And one of the things, while the Jazz are not a good defensive team, they have shown some real signs of improvement recently. One of the things that is encouraging about where the Jazz are this year is their defensive shot distribution. So the Jazz are the 4th best team in the NBA this season at denying people getting shots at the rim. Golden State, remarkably, is number 1. They do it with Draymond. They just suck into the paint, and they do not allow you to get to the rim. Sacramento's 2, Detroit is 3, and Utah is 4. In fact, the Jazz forced the 6th best location-effective field goal percentage defensively. That's really, when you're fundamentally looking at, okay, right now we're still bad defensively. Our point of attack's not very good. We're not doing these things well. We've got to get better in a ton of areas if we're going to be a good defensive team one day. This is the start of the whole thing, and this is what Walker gives you. Walker gives you the start of being able to fundamentally play defense by having it so that you force people into the correct shots. Now we actually have to start defending the shots well enough. In fact, Walker and Drew Eubanks are 2 of the best in the NBA. If you look at the data, like if they're the closest defender, the shot numbers aren't very good. And the rest of our guys are like some of the worst, or some of the worst contesters you have around. So 7-footers really matter. In a league where we're talking about small ball, which has never really been true, it's skill ball, where we start talking about 7-footers getting played off the floor in the playoffs. The fact of the matter is the 7-footer really matters. They deny the rim. The rim is the defensive holy grail. Even you heard Will Hardy the other day say the rim is king offensively and the rim is king defensively. That's the king on all of it. And that's what the league's doing. And this is actually what's not talked about enough in this whole three-pointing barrage, is that the coaches are so good and the defenses have gotten so good at denying the rim. That's why there's so many threes being taken. The rim shots, as we talked about, if you're an everydayer, you heard this probably a few months ago when I did this analysis and said basically the three, if you recall, not to be boastful, but I kind of announced the three-point shooting jump was going to happen before it happened, because what's happened in the last 4 years is the rim numbers have stayed exactly the same, 33%. This year it's actually down to 31.7%. And with the rim numbers staying exactly the same, now your choice is one of these not very good mid-range shots or a three, because no one's allowing anyone else to get to the rim. So the good news here for the Jazz is they're actually the 4th best team in the league at denying the rim. And they're using Walker Kessler, setting up their defensive structure. And now we just got to get better at contesting shots. And better at last night without Walker, we saw the difference. By the way, just maybe the one piece of information I haven't given you is we're not great yet at defending the shot at the rim. This would be the next step for Walker and the next step for the team. and trying to understand when they are getting the rim, why it's so easy. We're 29th in the league at defending the shot once it gets to the rim. So that's not ideal. Jazz defense, still not good. Premise, starting to deny the rim, is good. Will Hardy, at times, as a head coach, as a fan, has to be awesome for you. We talked about it yesterday. He did it again last night. You do not hear head coaches get this specific about what they're looking for from their players. It's next on Locked on Jazz. Tuesday edition of Locked on Jazz is brought to you by Murdoch Hyundai. Wow, that was a weird little brain cramp right there. Murdoch Hyundai is located at 4646 South State Street, also located in Logan and in Linden, giving you the absolute best customer service you can get because the Murdochs believe strongly in the no regrets approach, making sure that you have no regrets that you spent the time to look at Murdoch Hyundai. And we want to give you the VIP treatment when you go. So if you're looking for a car right now, I suggest you put the Hyundai on the list and then you decide. But take a look at it because for the bells and the whistles and the safety features and the price, it's pretty hard to find a better equation. And then it comes down to whether or not you like it or not. That's what you get at Murdoch Hyundai. If it's the SUV, you're talking about the Kona and the Tucson and the Santa Fe and the Palisade. And if you're talking about the sedan, it's the Sonata and the Elantra. And if you're talking about the electric cars, it's the Ioniq 5 and the Ioniq 6. It's all at Murdoch Hyundai. Email me first at dlock09@gmail.com. That's dlock09@gmail.com. We'll set you up with that VIP meeting. Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is here for you with the big game coming this weekend. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown or calling the MVP or even better on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action with live betting all game long. You can adjust your bets as the game unfolds. Feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl. That's icing on the cake. Download the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet your $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. And if you want to bet on tonight's Utah Jazz game, the FanDuel line for tonight's game. Sorry, didn't come up right away. Let me look at it for you. Lakers, bunch of LeBron, Anthony Davis things as they play Philadelphia. Jazz, Warriors. Warriors are a 12-point favorite against the Jazz tonight. We've only been favored once in all games, any game all year. Thanks so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps. Thanks so much for tuning in. We also have the daily newsletter. It's the one-stop ultimate NBA newsletter. So you only need to get one in your email box. Why? Because you get your local team, Jazz, hopefully. You get Katie Heindel, who is your national NBA writer. Thursdays, you get Mike Schreier, just to add a little twist to it. And then you get the fantasy insight from Josh Lloyd each and every night as well. All at your free newsletter. Go to lockedondaily.com to sign up today. Will Hardy was asked what he wants out of Keyonte George. And the great thing is we don't have to speculate because Will Hardy told us exactly what he wants out of Keyonte George. Oh, that's too bad. That just buffered. So let me see if I can find it again, but I doubt I'm going to be able to find it. Hotel internet sometimes makes life a little bit more difficult than it would be otherwise. Big black screen there for David. So that's really a bummer. Wonder why that happened. Let's see if I can get lucky here for a second. I don't think this is going to work. All right. I think we found it. Believe it or not, little live scramble there for you. Sorry, that was not the cleanest thing ever. So let's add Will Hardy to the stage. Here is what Will Hardy said. I think I'm going to hit this right about Keyonte George.
To improve his on-ball defense. He's still going to be involved in a ton of actions. He's still going to be playing a bunch of minutes, but it's really about just right now him recognizing which things are most important for him to be focused on. Individual defense is one, team defense is number two. And both of those things are sort of encapsulated by just the overall competitiveness on every play. His talent is obvious. We can all see that when we watch him play.
So there it is. We don't need to speculate. We don't need to wonder why Keyonte George is not starting anymore. He needs better on-ball defense. He needs better team defense. And he needs better competitiveness on every play. All right, time to grow up. Growing up's hard. We went through this with Walker last year. It's kind of what I said yesterday on the show. But Will Hardy's nice enough to just let us hear it, so we might as well share it with you. I thought Keyonte played harder last night. We can judge it every night. It's what we have. It's the year of development, so you're going to be judging all the time. And I thought Keyonte played harder last night on the ball. He's still not very good at it. But you can't learn the skills to get better at it until you're playing hard at it, right? So there was a play last night where he's guarding Dame, and he kind of steps into Dame, and he gets called for a foul. And there's a play the other night where he's guarding, and he's working hard, and Dame sets him up and beats him baseline to the basket. Okay, Dame's going to the Hall of Fame. That's fine. No one's expecting a second-year guard in the NBA to come into this league and know how to be an elite defender. No, Amon Thompson's different. Oh, my gosh, is he different. Most of these guys have gotten here because of their offensive skills. And so they have to learn defense, and it's a new situation for them. And this is what he's going to have to learn. But I think more than that, what he's going to have to learn is the effort and the commitment and to have a desire to do that. What's so interesting to me on all of this is there hasn't been a single word from Will Hardy about an offensive shot selection, turnovers, misses, anything of that sort. Anything of that sort. So this could be a really interesting stretch to watch. The shock of all of it's going to wear off. Certainly, I thought Keyonte played shocked the first game. He took 8 shots in 8 minutes. Came out kind of, I would say, immature and angry. That's fine. Last night he played hard. We have to let these guys be human, right? Like, I have great sympathy for Key. Like, my daughter's a sophomore in college. Key should be a junior. They're the same age. I'm not sure. I think she's awesome. I think she's amazing. I'm not sure she'd do great in front of 19,000 people every night. Because I'm not sure most 20-year-olds would. So, like, as we talk about this, let's remember that Key's a human. And when we talk about, like, the fact that he was immature and angry, yeah, he's 20. Fine. I was probably immature and angry at 50. And we talk about him growing and learning. Yeah. And when you've done one thing one way your whole life, and now someone's telling you you've got to do it a different way, it's hard to believe that's true. So this is a process. And we probably need to have some unreasonable hospitality and some sympathy and some softness and show some love, as Will Hardy says. All right, latest on the trade landscape from talking to multiple people yesterday is there does begin one of two things is going on. Now, they might be the same. There is a feeling that the league's like in a holding pattern on Jimmy Butler right now. That the Jimmy Butler trade has to get done. There's just so many pieces. It's probably going to have to be a 3 or 4 team deal. And so therefore, you're suddenly, if you have 5 or 6 teams that can't make a move, and you got 4 or 5 teams that aren't going to make a move, and then you only got like 10 or 12 teams that are actually involved in all this, and you got 4 or 5 of them holding off on what happens with Jimmy Butler, you've really frozen the league. So that's one opinion. The second opinion I got from someone was Jimmy Butler goes, Zach LaVine goes, and then all the dominoes fall. But we're actually waiting on Jimmy Butler to go so that Zach LaVine can go, and then all the dominoes fall. Okay. The third opinion I have from someone is just deals just are not going to get done. I don't buy that last one, but the point is that it's super cool right now. And the opinion there is that the answer everyone's giving around the league about the trade landscape right now is that we're all holding on Jimmy Butler. And their point is, what happens if we're actually not all holding on Jimmy Butler? What happens if actually nobody has anything really going? Their point of view was, maybe if you were all holding on Jimmy Butler, don't you think that you would at least have things that were hot and ready if the Jimmy Butler trade goes, or if this happens, or if that? He's like, I'm not hearing any of that. So the general feeling around the league is that everyone's sitting waiting for Jimmy Butler. But I got to tell you, the most logical thing I've heard when talking to people is that, like, it just might be super cool. Like, don't be surprised if there's just a lot of teams with players on their roster at the end of the trade deadline that they're looking at going, what do we do with you for the last 35 games? We did not expect to have you left on our roster. What are we doing now? And there's going to be a lot of coaches who are looking at their roster going, wait a sec. I thought I was getting some troops to come in and help me out here down the rest of the way. And they're probably not going to get them. And the other question that keeps kind of percolating is there's a beginning of a rising feeling in the league that just Oklahoma City is so much better than everyone else in the West. They're like, what are you trying to do? Now, I think Denver and Dallas could possibly beat Oklahoma City, and if I'm Denver and Dallas, I feel like I'd have to go in. But there was someone who said to me, like, why would Denver, like, give up stuff right now? Like, they're not going to beat Oklahoma City. And there's still a little bit of a feeling that Boston's just that much better than everyone, even though Cleveland's been that good, though Cleveland not playing as well right now. So the trade landscape, I would say, as we're 7 days away from this thing, 8 days away from this, is eerily quiet. And I always believe deals just get done, and you're not going to have nothing. But it feels tighter than usual and quieter than usual. And this gets super interesting because if all of a sudden the trade deadline's gone and free agency's gone, how do you ever do anything other than draft players? It's interesting. Doc Rivers told a fib last night, and I'm here to address it next on Locked on Jazz. Thanks so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. Daily newsletter at Locked on Daily. All right, Doc Rivers and the Milwaukee Bucks don't offensive rebound. And they don't just not offensive rebound. No one else, they don't offensive rebound like they're not close on offensive rebounding. We'll look at some of these numbers together. If you're on YouTube with us, I will share I will share the screen with you so you can see it if you care to. So, if you look at the offensive rebounding numbers in the NBA, the Milwaukee Bucks grabbed 21.7% of all offensive rebounds. The league average is 28%, which is up. And the high teams in the league are Houston and Memphis. Houston at 35%, Memphis at 33%, Utah at 31%. And Milwaukee is 21.7%. And Indiana's next at 24%, and Chicago's at 24%, and then everyone else gets 25% and gets right inside the regular standard deviation. So Milwaukee offensive rebounds far less than anyone else. And so when I asked Doc Rivers, try it politely before the ball game, was like, why? Because the fact of the matter is the reason that everyone says that you don't offensive rebound is because it means that you don't have to defend in transition, that you're getting back defensively. Well, Milwaukee, if this would be true, would not allow a lot of transition. Well, the fact is Milwaukee is 17th in the league at denying transition. Well, they're below average. The second thing would be that you would be particularly good at defending in transition. Milwaukee's 16th. So in those two numbers, it doesn't match. Now, when I asked Doc about this, he says, well, you have to get your defense set, and that helps your defense. So to Doc's point on that, Milwaukee is the sixth best team in the league in half-court defense. So maybe he's onto something there. But let's look at the other teams and see if this is true or not. So Indiana and Chicago are the other teams that don't offensive rebound out of the norm. Not as much, but they don't. Indiana's 20th in the league in half-court defense, and Chicago is 27th. Doc Rivers said to us last night that the reason, he said, literally his quote was, if you look at teams that don't offensive rebound, you have good defensive teams. That is just not fundamentally true. Look at the chart. If you're with me on YouTube, look at the chart. Well, it's really small, so you'd have a hard time looking at the chart. But if I tell you what the chart says, the teams in defense that don't offensive rebound rank 10th, 17th, 23rd, 24th, and 12th defensively. And the Lakers are 19th. The best defensive teams in the league. Oklahoma City ranks 24th in offensive rebounding, so they're not outside of the norm. They're within 2 percentage points. The Clippers are 20th. Orlando is 13th. Houston is 1st. Minnesota is 14th, and Memphis is 2nd. So two of the teams that do the most offensive rebounding in the NBA are in the top 6 defensively. 4 of the top 6 defensive teams in the league actually offensive rebound more than league average or at league average or more. So Doc Rivers told a fib. The theory is that Houston and Memphis, Utah is in fact a high offensive rebound team, and we're bad in transition. I think we're just bad in transition. We also turn the ball over a lot. If it really want to get into it, the way you should look at this is you should look at possessions defensively in transition off misses, right? We now can get granular like that the possession is coming off of a miss and it's in transition. So the Jazz allow the most transition of any team in the NBA overall. But a lot of that is, according to the Jazz, is because of the fact that they allow it off of turnovers. Some of that is true. The Jazz also do allow a lot of transition off misses. So here are the teams that allow the most transition off misses in the NBA. And do the Milwaukee Bucks allow the least because of Doc Rivers' dramatic effort to not offensive rebound? And the answer is no. The Milwaukee Bucks allow they're 11th in the NBA at allowing transition off of misses. How about Chicago and Indiana, the two teams that we talked about that don't offensive rebound also? Indiana actually is 26th in the league at allowing transition off misses, so maybe. And Chicago's 13th, so no. Let's flip it around. Houston, the number one offensive rebounding team in the league, is middle of the pack at allowing transition off misses. The Jazz are the second most, and Memphis is the fourth most. Okay. So maybe there's a little something there, but not dramatic. And the comment that you find bad offensive rebounding teams, you find good defensive teams, is just fundamentally not true. It's a fib. It's a myth. It's not true. So the Jazz are a bad defensive team, and a bad transition team, but that's related to their transition. It is not related to the fact that they offensive rebound a lot. So that is a little fib by one of our favorites in Doc Rivers. And that, my friends, is Locked On Jazz today. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the program. If you have not followed me on socials, I'm DLock09. That's DLock09 on Blue Thread, Blue Sky, Threads. I combine the two of them. Twitter, Snap, TikTok, Instagram, all of them. Please jump aboard and follow me on those. Also, subscribe to the show, add the show, hit the bell button on YouTube, and sign up for the Locked On Daily newsletter. That is Locked On Jazz today. Thanks so much. We now send you the first ever 24/7 national NBA channel. And if you're on audio, check out Locked On NBA Game Night, every game, every night on Locked On NBA.